So 3 aircraft carriers now in the region, and the message to North Korea is clear. The vice president hammered it home today. Watch.
While President Trump has made clear that the United States has, in his words, great strength and patience, all options are on the table. Our enemies should never doubt the capabilities of the armed forces of the United States of America. Anyone who would threaten our nation should know that America always seeks peace. But if we are forced to defend ourselves or our allies, we will do so with military power that is effective and overwhelming.
That as our nation's top generals visit Korea's demilitarized zone a week before President Trump's landmark trip to Asia, where North Korean aggression will be front and center.
Behind me, to the north, an oppressive regime that shackles its people, denying their freedom, their welfare, and their human dignity in pursuit of nuclear weapons and the means of delivery in order to threaten others with catastrophe.
That's General Mattis today. But Kim Jong-un is just one of several strong men taking aim at the U.S. On this show last night, General Jack Keane made clear that China wants to be the superpower of the world.
President Xi has just finished up the 19th Communist Party Congress, where he sort of went through a coronation. And he's been given more power than any leader, with the exception of Mao Zedong, and his ambitions are strategically critical. He believes, and this is stated, that eventually China will replace the United States as a preeminent global power.
This as Vladimir Putin continues to push boundaries, personally launching 4 ballistic missiles as part of a steady series of war games amid growing tensions with the West. And pictured here as a modern-day czar on the cover of The Economist. And Xi and Putin awfully cozy a few months back, with the Chinese leader saying that their relations are at the best they've been in history. So what does all this mean? We're joined by Henry Kazianis, Director of Defense Studies at the Center for the National Interest, former Congressman and Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, and former CIA officer Buck Sexton. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Harry, let me start with you. You know, we sort of laid out quite a bit of the pressure in terms of the dominance in the world. What do you make of all of that?
Well, Martha, I think in terms of looking at North Korea, Russia, and China, it's pretty clear. What they represent is essentially an authoritarian axis of 3 powers getting together and essentially trying to challenge U.S. global dominance and influence, and essentially the international system the United States created after World War II. And I think Russia and China specifically have been doing a lot of things to essentially mutually reinforce each other. I mean, think about this. The Russians sell the Chinese tons of oil, natural gas, minerals. The Chinese are buying tremendous amounts of Russian fighters, different types of military equipment, advanced air defense systems. So these are 3 countries that are mutually trying to help each other and trying to break U.S. influence around the world. And we have to be concerned about it.
Buck, what do you think?
Well, I think that what we see with China so far is that they understand that because North Korea is such an imminent problem for us, it's meant that there's been a bit of a delay of tackling some of the other issues that President Trump pushed to the forefront when it comes to China. Trade imbalance, all the problems with the theft of intellectual property. I mean, President Trump made a big play of how we're going to challenge China on the issues of the economy. But so far what we've seen is, China, we really need you for help with North Korea. And the credible military threat that we have vis-a-vis North Korea is a distinguishing characteristic, I think, from what was believed to be the case the previous administration. Strategic patience essentially means we're just going to wait this out. And that is what the Obama administration did. With North Korea now, we are telling them, look, there is not an endless amount of patience for diplomacy here. And with Russia, it's going to be a lot of trying to find some common ground and also deal with the fact that their hand in the Middle East has gotten a lot stronger. Absolutely. They have a lot of levers against us. They want to break up NATO. So the common ground is minimal, but it can't always just be aggressive and belligerent towards them. So the administration right now, President Trump, has his hands full with these players. He's
got a lot on his plate. And when you look at Jason Chaffetz, what Buck just brought up in terms of Russian involvement all over the Middle East, the relationship in Syria, the relationship with Iran, with Turkey, it's a pretty powerful combination.
Well, the paradigm has changed, though, because our leadership has changed. We have a much stronger president than we did under President Obama. Our allies didn't believe us. They didn't trust us. Our enemies didn't fear us. And with President Trump, you have a dynamic personality. It keeps them on edge because they don't know exactly what he's going to do next. The economy is roaring back to strength. The Congress is funded by tens of billions of dollars increase in the military. We put the majority of our naval forces in the Pacific with 3 carriers and the president going to Asia. That's something terribly different than what Barack Obama was doing with his approach towards appeasement. You've got a much stronger leader, and I liken that unto Ronald Reagan.
Harry, when you look at North Korea, they haven't launched a missile in 40 days. The president is headed to the region. We have these aircraft carriers moving in. What do you think the president's message has to be when he speaks with the leadership in Japan and in South Korea, for example?
Martha, I think this is obvious. I think what the president is going to do is he's basically going to pivot his foreign policy strategy. During the campaign, he talked a lot about America first, having a pragmatic, if you will, realist sort of foreign policy. I think he's going to focus very much on North Korea, and it's going to end up actually being North Korea first. And that's the reasons why are very obvious. The North Koreans have been detonating nuclear weapons since 2006. They tested 2 ICBMs this summer. I actually think the North Koreans right now can hit the United States with a crude nuclear weapon. So the president has to focus on that. I think he's going to go to Asia. He's going to reinforce our alliances and show Kim Jong-un we mean business.
What about President Xi, Buck, in terms of that relationship and putting pressure on him to follow through with the sanctions, to follow through with, cutting them off in a way that would actually make a difference?
There's only so much that we can actually pressure the Chinese when it comes to North Korea, because we don't actually want the same thing at the end of the day when it comes to the Korean Peninsula. The Chinese do not want a unified, pro-U.S. Korea on their doorstep. They would much rather have a buffer state in place. So they will help us, but they'll help us up to a point. And in the meantime, it allows them to push back on some of the other issues, like I mentioned, of trade. But right now, the relationship between Trump and Xi is still in its infancy. So we really have to see where it goes. The table's been set that it'll be a different administration. It won't just be a fake pivot to Asia, but what that means in practice remains to be seen.
Yeah, the president told Lou Dobbs the other night, we have a very good relationship. He likes him. He thinks he's a very good man, speaking of President Xi. He says China's helping us. Russia's going the other way. So we'll see. Thank you very much, you guys. Great to see you all tonight.
Thank you.